Coordinator of the Linguistic Empowerment Cell at Jawaharlal Nehru University, and it is my great pleasure to welcome you all to today's event as we annually celebrate the United Nations International Day of the World's Indigenous People on the 9th of August. This day is a reminder of the importance of preserving the cultural and natural heritage of indigenous communities and their indigenous knowledge. Today we will explore the vital role these communities play in environmental protection, and we will discuss the United Nations theme of this year, which is protecting the rights of indigenous peoples in voluntary isolation and initial contact. Did you know that there are an estimated 476 million indigenous people in the world? Yes, 476 million, living across 90 countries. They make up less than 6% of the world's population, but they account for at least 15% of the poorest. They speak an overwhelming majority of the world's estimated 7,000 languages and represent 5,000 different cultures. Indigenous peoples are inheritors and practitioners of unique cultures and ways of relating to people and the environment. They have retained social, cultural, economic, and political characteristics that are distinct from those of the dominant societies in which they live. Despite their cultural differences, indigenous people from around the world share common problems related to the protection of their rights as distinct people. Indigenous people throughout history have been violated, but many countries have also supported their indigenous communities. We are lucky that our government has supported many such indigenous communities. Indigenous people today are arguably among the most disadvantaged and vulnerable groups of people around the world. The international community now recognizes that special measures are required to protect their rights and maintain their distinct cultures and way of life. In order to raise awareness of the needs of these population groups, every 9th August commemorates the International Day of the World's Indigenous People, chosen in recognition of the first meeting of the United Nations Working Group on Indigenous Populations held in Geneva in 1982. Though our university's Vice Chancellor has been extremely supportive to both me and my fellow coordinator, Dr. Ganga Sai Meena, she has regretted that she will be unable to join us today due to the selection committee meetings that are currently taking place. But we are thrilled to have the presence of our Rector 3, Professor Das. This entire event has been sponsored by the funds from a joint project between JNU and IIT Roorkee under DST National Mission on Interdisciplinary Cyber Physical System, IIT Bhilai Innovation and Technology Foundation, and the project is titled Adaptation of Indigenous and Local Knowledge Systems and FinTech Solutions for Comprehensive Tribal Development in Chhattisgarh. We will request our first speaker of the day, Dr. Saket Badola, to kindly grace us with his talk. But before that, let me give a brief introduction about him. Ladies and gentlemen, it is our honor to introduce Dr. Saket Badola, a distinguished Indian Forest Service officer and a renowned expert in the field of forestry and conservation. He attained a university's honors bachelor's degree in veterinary sciences from G.B. Pant University of Agriculture and Technology, a postgraduate in animal genetics from Indian Veterinary Research Institute, Bareilly. Again, he got a university honor for that, I might add, and an advanced diploma in wildlife management from Wildlife Institute of India. His career has spanned over 2 decades, dedicating himself to the preservation and sustainable management of India's rich forest and wildlife resources. Throughout his illustrious career, Dr. Badola has held several key positions, such as Deputy Conservator of Forest of Upper Yamuna Forest Division in Uttarkashi, Deputy Field Director of Corbett Tiger Reserve in Uttarakhand, Deputy Conservator of Forest of Mussoorie Forest Division, Director of Binog Wildlife Sanctuary, Deputy Conservator of Forest, Dehradun. He was also the country head of Traffic India, which is the global wildlife trade monitoring network. And he was the director of Rajaji Tiger Reserve and conservator of forest for Gangotri National Park and Govind Wildlife Sanctuary and National Park. including his current position as Field Director of Corbett Tiger Reserve. His work focuses on forest ecology, wildlife conservation, and community-led forest management. Dr. Badola's contributions have been recognized through numerous awards and accolades, such as the International Visitors Leadership Program Fellowship from the Government of the United States, the National Level Master Trainer in Forestry Sector by our government, the prestigious Hari Singh Fellowship from the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, and the Governor's Commendation in 2023 for his outstanding work on wildlife conservation. Today, we are privileged to have Dr. Badola share his insights and experiences with us, and we look forward to his valuable perspectives on the rights and role of indigenous communities in environment protection. Please join us in welcoming Dr. Saket Badola.
Thank you, Dr. Sandesha. Whenever somebody reads the CV, it looks like कि आपको बहुत ज़्यादा टाइम हो गया ये सब करते हुए, बहुत लंबी लिस्ट बन जाती है. But I thank JNU first of all for giving me this opportunity to come on this day, interact with such a diverse group. It is so lovely to see every one of you in your traditional attires and all. And I would also add that let me thank Dr. Sandesha also, because if it was not her insistence, I probably would have just kind of taken some excuse. Because only yesterday we were celebrating 88 years of Corbett National Park. You all would know that Corbett National Park was the first national park in country in India and also in Asia. And since then it has maintained its the topmost position since then. We have highest number of tigers, highest density of tigers. Today we have 260 plus tigers, and tigers are doing extremely well. But I'm not talking about tigers for a change also. I'm talking on some other issues today. And on such a lovely, I would add a sunny and a kind of mix of drizzle and sun. It's difficult to start on a slightly gloomy note. But then we need to understand the facts. Then only we'll be able to appreciate what indigenous communities are doing for conservation of biodiversity and also of forest and nature. You know, the country or the globe is today facing two kind of major crises. First is climate crisis, which is like on our face, and we can see that, we can feel that. But there is another crisis which is going on, which is known as biodiversity crisis. So we are also, this is also a crisis which we probably are not realizing, because if a species vanishes, and if it's not a charismatic species, we don't realize that some species has vanished until and unless we realize that the whole ecosystem has been disturbed. Okay. And unfortunately, who is responsible for all of this? I think we all humans are responsible for both these crises, which are impacting us only. But somehow we are not realizing. We have not yet found a solution for a balance between ecology and economy, for example. Okay, so we are destroying ecology because we want to be more economically ahead of that. We have to support a large population kind of thing. That is an issue. Second thing is, which is more concerning, is that our consumption pattern is going from bad to worse. Okay, the kind of waste which we are generating, it's going to turn the entire planet, which we see so beautiful planet, into a waste bin. Ultimately, so much of plastic we are generating. There are already islands of plastic waste which are moving around in oceans. You know, they've all come together and they have formed islands kind of thing. So we know that. Ultimately, what is responsible for that is the neglect which we have, which has crept in our systems for nature, for conservation, for wildlife, for forest. Okay, so that is a problem. But there is a ray of hope. Okay, we all know that the indigenous communities all across the globe, they are providing that ray of hope. I was aware that there are 300 million, but Dr. Sandesha just corrected that there are 476 million indigenous community people all across the globe. That is there. But the more interesting part is that the indigenous community, they own, or they have 36% of forest area. The undisturbed, the wildest or the natural forest, 36% of forest area is on indigenous lands, indigenous communities' lands. Now that is remarkable, especially when we understand that approximately 10% of global warming, which is happening, the prime responsibility for that 10% of global warming is deforestation and degradation of forest resources. So now in this context, this is very important that almost 1/3 of the natural forest, they are on indigenous community land. So we should understand that. And that's not just that. More than 80% of biodiversity, of the global biodiversity, is represented in these areas. Again, so indigenous community, they are also contributing to saving of 80% of biodiversity, represented biodiversity. And that's why this all becomes very important. I don't know how many of you have read or heard about, there was a report which came approximately 2 years back, the Ifos report, okay, which was, they just assessed that what kind of biodiversity loss the global scenario is happening. And they realized that there are more than 1 million species, just mark my word, there are more than 1 million species, which is 10 lakh species, which are on the verge of extinction, okay, if proper corrective measures are not being taken. So that is how grave the situation is. But the same report also, again as I said, also gives us a ray of hope. The same report also mentions that this decline in biodiversity is far less in the land which are controlled by the indigenous communities. So that is how important the role of indigenous community is towards biodiversity conservation, towards nature conservation, towards forest conservation. Especially if you talk about India. Okay, again, correct me, there might be, the data might be slightly old. There are more than 70 million indigenous community members here in India. Okay, there are more than 200 ethnic groups, more than 500 tribal communities which are there. But India is also unique because we just imagine that we have only 2.4% of global land mass. Okay, but we have approximately 16% of global population, human population. We also have approximately 14 to 15% of livestock population. So you can understand the pressure that only 2.4% of global landmass is undergoing on this. Okay, so that is a problem. But again, we also have 7 to 8% of biodiversity. Only 2.4% of global landmass, but 7 to 8% of biodiversity. We are one of the 17 mega biodiverse countries all across the world, and we are doing some amazing work, absolutely amazing work as far as wildlife conservation goes. So there is a problem, as I said, that only 2.4% of global landmass is with livestock, highest population of livestock, highest population of humans. We are also protecting biodiversity, so it's under a lot of pressure. But then solutions also, India also offers a lot of solutions. Many of them come from these areas again. We have several festivals which we know, which the indigenous communities celebrate, which are dedicated to forest conservation, which are dedicated to, say, species like animals and even species like fishes and birds also. So they also provide us a lot of solutions also. There are several steps which were taken by Government of India. We all know about the Forest Rights Act, okay, which identified, or which in words said that the historical injustice which was done with the tribals and the forest dwelling communities, that needs to be corrected. We have that act in place. It has a mixed kind of reaction or mixed kind of solution, but again, it is a step which Government of India has taken. There is one more thing in Biodiversity Act, which all of you know, which is known as access and benefit sharing. Now that's a very important tool, that how the traditional knowledge, the tribal traditional knowledge, can be used for larger good, but the benefits of that knowledge can also flow in back to the communities which have that traditionally, which hold that traditional knowledge with them. I'm sure all of you must have read the case of Kani tribe, which is in Kerala. If you have not, then you should go and study. It's a classic study that how there was a tribe, Kani tribe, which used to use a kind of plant for some medicines and purposes. Then a government institute worked with them. They produced a kind of medicine which is known as Jeevani. They produced that medicine, and the profits which were generated from that medicine, that is flowing back to the communities again. So it's a classic example of how the benefit sharing work done. Nagayo protocol, which brought this access and benefit sharing into CBD, that came much later. We were the leaders in that. So these things can be done. Now, next step is, I think I need to keep an eye on time also, because government officers like me, when they get hold of mic, they don't leave it that easily. Okay, so I think what we need to do, first of all, is see what we are trying, or what you will see all along, that for every problem, we try to find a techno fix of that problem. So I think we need to correct that obsession with the techno-fixation approach of all the problems. I think as far as biodiversity conservation goes, as far as nature conservation goes, we have a working solution in the form of traditional knowledge which we have. We need to just collate that knowledge. We need to work that into a actionable kind of research, actionable kind of activities which can be done. And I think here, even Director Saab is here. I think JNU can play a very important role in collating of all this information and turning it into some kind of actionable research and work, which can then be scaled up with officers like me who are working in field. So that can be done at the field level. So I think that is something which needs to be done. We need to document, as I said, collate information and document all this information, what is there. And towards the end, I would just add that, see, it is a time that we protect the rights of indigenous communities. We celebrate the role which they are playing in biodiversity conservation. I think we should also respect the unique and the diverse cultural aspect of all this. We need to acknowledge the role which they have already played in conservation of biodiversity and also the active role which they are playing in how to protect that biodiversity. And we need to strengthen, but that comes with the government for people like me. We need to strengthen this by use of policies, good rules, good laws. That needs to be done. So that is one. Again, speaking on especially on linguistic linguistic diversity, Dr. Sandesh has just left, but there were some facts which I wanted to narrate, that across the globe, out of the 7 linguistic diverse regions, 9 are also the same regions which are also known for their biodiversity. And out of the 9 topmost countries which are there of biodiversity, they also are featured into the 25 countries which are known for linguistic diversity also. So that's how well connected the diversity and everything is. We need to preserve that diversity. As I said, we need to protect that role which they are playing, and we need to promote what indigenous communities are doing. That knowledge should be used for the wider good of globe. That needs to be done. Thank you very much.